if I'm so focused in and so disappointed and so worried about the money, a lot of times I don't see the opportunities that are out there.
Hey, Rent to Retires, it's
Audio
Adam
and
Schrader
video, or
here.
just
Sorry, what?
audio? Is this audio and video or just audio?
Yeah, it's going to go up on our YouTube channel
Great.
once we're done.
Just so I know, I don't pick my nose. You got it. All right.
Hey, Rent to Retires, it's Adam Schrader here with another episode, joined as usual by Zach Lemaster, the founder and CEO of Rent to Retirement. And we are joined today by Dr. Eric Holsapple. He is a successful developer and entrepreneur with LC Real Estate Group. He has a PhD in economics. He has been a real estate CEO and developer for nearly 40 years. He's lectured in real estate at Colorado State University for 20 years and is also a practitioner of yoga and meditation for the last 30 years. And he has written a new book called Profit with Presence, The 12 Pillars of Mindful Leadership. Eric, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate being invited on. Excited to be here.
Absolutely. Yeah. So tell us a little bit. You've been a real estate CEO, you've been a developer. Obviously, those were, along the way bumping up. But how did you first get started with real estate? What led you into this area?
I graduated with an MBA from Colorado State University in the early mid '80s, and couldn't find a job, and I got hired by a real estate developer. And I was just started as a financial analyst in a real estate development firm right in Fort Collins. I was in Fort Collins for about 2 weeks, and I got transferred to Denver, and then worked in Denver for a little bit. And that company, was going to the moon, but they didn't make it. And I ended up meeting through that company, a shareholder of theirs was an Australian firm. And in the 80s, the Australians were coming in, like the Japanese came in. And one time they owned over half of downtown Los Angeles. Everywhere the foreigners were coming in buying real estate. And I met the Australian guys, and they hired me to be their first U.S. employee. And I got on the ground, and within a couple of years was their CEO for North America. Moved me to Los Angeles, and I ran offices in L.A., Denver, Princeton, New Jersey. Ran all over the place. Worked, 7 days a week, and those guys just traveled around the globe. I also went to Western Canada, ran that stuff for them, reported to the UK, got to travel around the globe, and just worked like a madman, worked my way up. Went off on my own, after 4 or 5 years of that.
Yeah. So what was your first your first investment in real estate?
Oh, well, in college, you may probably going back a little further than you want, but I went to the University of Maine as an undergraduate, and I bought a trailer for $1,500. And I had a roommate in it. And then after about 3 weeks, it started having a big odor. And I found out the guy that sold it to me had been sprayed by a skunk. And every time the wind would blow the right direction or it'd warm up, the whole thing reeked of a skunk. So it was great for dates, I'll tell you. It didn't go too good. I ended up selling it a year later for $750 and moved to Colorado. But anyway,
well,
that was my first one. I've got commercial stories too, when we get to that.
Well, when you talk about a strange odor coming from a trailer, I expected much worse than just a skunk. So,
Trailer hacking.
There you go. I like it.
No, anyway, that was my first one. And my first commercial one we bought back when I went off on my own after I left the Australian firm. It was around the RTC days, Resolution Trust Company, in the early 1990s. I've been around a while, and bought a loan portfolio from a bank for $100,000 and ended up, turning into $300,000 and, doing that kind of stuff.
Very cool. So can you tell us, what kind of niche of real estate do you focus on development? Is this residential? Is it commercial? What is your kind of core experience?
Well, there's a number of ways to do real estate, I found. One is to have an expertise, when you move around the country in multifamily or retail or office or something. But and I got a lot of experience in a lot of different types, primarily retail and office back in the 80s, 90s. But our primary experience here is entitlement. So we've focused on a geographic location primarily in Northern Colorado. And with city entitlement processes, started a lot with residential horizontal development, and also developed a couple of Kroger's, which is King Soopers in this area. Shopping centers, one in Loveland, one in Fort Collins. But mostly in the entitlement world, to be able to go into a municipality and get an approval and take land from, the next agricultural to commercial, or, in the back in those times, we had about 6 subdivisions at a time going through for residential, taking ag land into residential properties back in the late 1990s, early 2000s.
And is this what your business still does mainly, is the entitlement process? And then do you sell off to developers or?
No, it morphed. What happened was in the Great Recession, we ended up getting back about 100 lots we were just selling lots to builders. Then in the Great Recession, we got about 100 lots back, and we had, I remember it was about 75,000 a month in negative outflow, and it just wasn't sustainable, between the debt service and property taxes and all that stuff. So we started a building company. It was easier to sell a house, and it was a lot. So we actually put houses on them. Went to one of our primary lenders, put up too much collateral, found a way to put houses up on it, and built our way out of those houses, and ended up with a home building company. We built upwards of 100 homes a year in 2012, 13, 14, up through to COVID. So we went into home building, and the entitlement game just totally changed in that, we used to be able to go on an 80-acre parcel, and it had water and all those kind of things. And it drastically changed that where, it was $10 million, $20 million to do anything with a property. There was just so much offsite infrastructure required. All the old metro districts came in and those kind of things. So we went into home building and more investment, did some 1031s and traded some of our commercial properties, and really went into long-term holds on commercial investments. We got about a 400,000 square foot portfolio that's mainly us. And, but we'll do most anything. We have self-storage, office, retail, but mostly in this municipality and down into Denver. We've been to Colorado Springs and back. And
you've had a wildly successful career, and you've participated in a lot of different areas of real estate. I want to bring this back down to ground level a little bit, though, because I would say that most of our audience is going to be a newer investor or someone that's starting, trying to get started, ideally, focusing on residential real estate, maybe even some small multifamily. And of course, we want to put into that your mindfulness aspect of it.
Right.
I think, and this is something I personally am interested in as well, just simply because as entrepreneurs and real estate investors, those go hand in hand. And often, most of us, when we get started, we're working multiple jobs, right? Real estate maybe is a side hustle, a side business we're doing, maybe with the idea of eventually having some sort of like financial independence aspect to it. But it's a grind, and it adds a lot of additional stress and complications. But these are the people that are doing this have goals in mind. So can we talk a little bit more on how you've incorporated like meditation and yoga practices and just kind of mindfulness into your investing career, your mindset, your strategy, with how stressful this can be?
Yeah, and it's not just in that area. So for me, and you said, I was successful, and when I worked for that Australian firm, I'm a little guy. I'm 5'9". I was 210 pounds. Drank too much. I was just traveling all over the place. It was so stressed out. And I just looked in the mirror one day. I got transferred to Boston, which I was from Maine originally. And I looked in the mirror and said, "You're not going to be around very long. You got to make some changes." So I left that job, went out on my own, decided to go back to college and find, more purpose in life, less stress. I met my wife in Boston. We got married and came back out to Colorado State to do my PhD. And that's when I found mindfulness. I started with yoga. And that was my first foray into mindfulness. I was always an athlete, high school, all conference. But I hadn't done anything in about 5 years, other than run for a flight. And so I got back into running. I got back into shape and through yoga. And then my brother, my oldest brother, had started meditation. He was estranged from my dad. He wasn't an athlete. My dad was a coach. And I watched him through meditation come back and reconnect with my dad and brought my whole family back together. He said, "You want to try it?" And I said, "Sure." And I started meditating. I was a closet meditator for years. I mean, I think you can start really privately. And then it just really made some dramatic changes in me. And as our company grew, just kind of one at a time, people in the company would say, "What have you been doing? Why doesn't that stress you out? What's going on?" And I'd share it with them a little bit. Later on, we started a seed group at the company, and there's more to it than just and everybody doesn't have to meditate, but just that. But there's also gratitude and service work, particularly in real estate. I always tell anybody, better than cold calling, go into all your local nonprofits and help. Really go in there. You meet the best people in the community. You go into the habitat boards, the food bank, the housing authority, all those kind of things, and not into find business, but going to really help. And what you end up doing is you meet people in the business and the industry, and when they need something, they talk to you. It just kind of happens. I've also seen people go in there and try to get business, and that they just smell that on them. You got to go in and say, we did 50 houses with Habitat. We started, helping them build their thrift store here and putting some money into that. And then I went on their board and helped. And then, things happened to me, like in the Great Recession with those 100 houses. Habitat ended up buying 50 lots, 20 lots from us at that time. And we had to work it out with covenants so that it didn't, bring down the subdivision, because sometimes that can happen because their houses aren't the same standard, but they did some stone on and whatnot. And it was just a lifesaver. So a lot of those kind of things, and, teaching at the university, I made so many contacts with students and those kind of things. So the other thing, the part of mindfulness is service, to actually go into your communities. And the better your community is, the stronger your investments are going to be. So our strategy here, our vision statement's mindfully creating community. We have people here on virtually every nonprofit board, from neighbor to neighbor to the food bank to the chamber. And it's just a phenomenal way to get to know the community, get to know people, and to change your mindset, to turn your mindset around. So it's one thing that I really recommend. It's so much better than cold calling.
That's huge. And I think, and thank you for sharing that. I love the idea of participating to serve in areas that you're passionate about. And if you're passionate about real estate and just talking about what you're doing, not from like selling business, right? But just, it's interesting how many relationships we've developed out of just simply talking about what we're doing and participating in things that have nothing to do with real estate. It's a networking, it's a people business. And I think in my mind, as I look at this and how, mindset is so important to be successful in real estate, but of course, anything else you do in life outside of business, just with family and relationships as well, there's always problems, right? And obstacles always come up. And so many people sometimes get sucked into this downward spiral of letting a problem, cripple them, or focusing so much on the negative. And I think what's really helped me, and I need more meditation and mindfulness, no doubt, but I think what's helped me be successful is just being solution oriented and focusing on the positive and being able to, use. And it's interesting how many relationships we've created out of negative situations, or just finding creative ways to deal with solutions. And I would imagine that, when a problem occurs and people are wondering why you're not stressed out, you're taking the time to clear your head and focus on the solution in a lot of these cases. That might just be one applicable thing.
And also I find that we get so locked into, what our goal is, and then we're getting in and we don't get that. And we're so disappointed that our mind closes and we don't see the other opportunities that come from it. No experience is in all that. They're all valuable. Like anytime I go look at a property, I learn something. Every time I go under contract on something, I learn something, meet somebody. And losing money sometimes is the biggest entryway into a huge success. So what I say is that one of the things that mindfulness does is rather than being, judgmental and disappointed about what happened and so narrow focused, is just acknowledging, yeah, that didn't work. What are the opportunities? What did happen? Maybe it wasn't that property, but maybe I was on a street and I saw another house, or I met a contractor that said, hey, there's one over here to look at, or whatever. But if I'm so focused in and so disappointed and so worried about the money, a lot of times I don't see the opportunities that are out there. And I always live by the thing, when the good Lord shuts the door, he opens a window. I'm always looking for a lily pad to land on. Where is it? Because it rarely goes as designed. It rarely goes just boom,
I think, yeah, you mean real estate doesn't always go exactly as planned?
Straight linear line, no deviations.
It doesn't. And the other thing is, I've made way more money in downturns than I have in up.
That's mindset applicable to where the market is right now. I know, and man, this really is connecting with me, because just looking at that exact situation, like the first out of state properties we bought were turnkey, and they were from a turnkey company, and it was a disaster. These were D-class assets in downtown Chicago. The operator and manager ended up dying of a heart attack into them, and we were left to clean up the bag. And it was just a series of unfortunate stuff. We lost money on them. But from that experience, it allowed me to build better teams and systems in place to build a wildly successful turnkey company. But it's from that negative experience.
Expensive, I say, Zach. A good education is expensive.
Yeah, for sure.
We had a young guy in here one time. He came out of CSU. He was cum laude. I met him at CSU, and he came in an intern. We were working a project. I think we lost $500,000. And I said, "Geez, I wish we'd sent you to Harvard."
But I wouldn't have learned this at Harvard.
School of Hard Knocks. Yeah.
We turned that into a wildly successful shopping center project in the end that came from that, and he ran it, and now he's running the whole company hardly just about here now, that kid, great.
I love when you talk about the whole people ask you how you're not stressed out. And a lot of times the answer is, well, I am. I'm just looking for the solution right now.
There you go.
I'm just trying not to show it. But you also, Zach mentioned earlier, entrepreneurship, real estate investors are entrepreneurs. You have 3 children. They have all become entrepreneurs. Yeah. How did you instill, and most of the people I talk with talk about generational wealth, learning, handing it off to their children, letting their children grow. How have you successfully done that with your children going out and establishing businesses of their own?
And I brought them all into this one, and they all said, well, that's great, Dad, but I'm going to do my own thing. I don't know where they got it from. None of them want to work for anybody, including me, but they all worked for me at one time for a little bit in it. I loved something I heard from Warren Buffett years ago. He says, give them enough so they can do anything, and not so much they can do nothing. The biggest thing we gave him was the biggest gift my dad gave me was to learn to love to work, to like to work. That's just huge. And I have just gave them little opportunities. They all went through college, and 4 years I got them started in a house, those kind of things. Enough so they felt like they could do anything, but not so much that they knew they could just sit back and do nothing. So I support them and let them find their passion and go where that is. I mean, a lot of ways entrepreneurs is genetic. It's not, I taught at business school for 20 years. I really believe most of the successful people you see out there, couldn't even sit through school. A lot of them in corporations can, but a lot of the ones, they just got, there's billionaires I know that, spent, 6 weeks at school and just left and just said, I can't stand. So I think it's a lot of it's genetic and it's passion. Find what your passion is. If it's real estate, great. That's my passion. I love it, but it isn't my kid's passion. What's their passion? And then support them in it and let them find their way with it, and I give them little seeds, but I don't fund the whole thing for them. They gotta work hard, and I believe in them, and people feel that. So
that's huge. Yeah, and it's a fine balance, of course. I think my kids are very young, but yeah. It's and Adam has, I think he's like the Brady Bunch over there, so he's got a lot of.
Well, I've told Zach before, my second born, I've told my wife numerous times, like, he's going to have to run his own company because I would fire him in a heartbeat if you're an employee. he's going to have to run his own company because, he's just, if you tell him what to do, he's just like, pass. So,
Well, and I just like, I have one of my kids really struggled in school when he was younger, and I always believed in him. And later on, when he figured out what he wanted to study, he got a letter from the dean, said, listen, you're out of here next semester if you don't clean this up. He finally got on it. He went through and got straight A's, and now he's getting his PhD. He's writing his dissertation. I always said, they're not asking him the right questions yet. It's not, we don't all fit in this box. The world's a really, really exciting and interesting place, and a lot of different ways to fit in. And I also found, success in school doesn't always yield to what you do in business. It isn't the straight A students, because they usually do what they're told. A lot of times it's a C student like your son that just says, well, I'm doing it anyway. Here we go. That makes it. So,
I love that. Lots of valuable stuff to apply to life and business in general. Awesome. Eric, let's talk a little bit about let's get your input on kind of where the market's at right now.
Yeah.
You've been around the block once or twice here and been through some market cycles. So
I sure have.
How are you observing the current market that we're in, and where we're likely headed? I mean, and what would you advise for someone that's looking to invest today and kind of get started and grow their portfolio?
Yeah. So one of the things I see happening is, and what's for us is a lot of people aren't selling because you have to give up your mortgage. We're locked in a lot of commercial rates at, 4%. And some of the residential, I think the residential market's similar. People are in at 3% mortgages. If you sell, what are you in at 7 or whatever for the next rate, depending on the term and those kind of things. So I don't think things are starting to move a little bit. The capital, New York is starting to shift up what their capital stacks and those kind of things are, and they'll try to find a way to make the next level of money somehow. They don't sit too long. But what I think is happening and going to happen is that because of the interest rates and as these terms on these loans come up, particularly on the commercial, or things move, that things are going to start moving and prices will come down a little bit. Plus, with interest rates up, you just can't pay what you used to pay. With a double the interest rate, you just can't pay. So I see things maybe even in the later half of this year opening up a little bit with a few more opportunities. That we're already seeing foreclosures and things up and on that market, and some opportunities in that market, but mostly residential is what we're in on that market. So patience, and watching it, and there's always opportunity.
Yes.
The catch cry, the three great things in real estate, right? You say is location, location, location. I learned it was death, destitution, and divorce. There's always things going to come up. There's always an opportunity out there, but it is going to be a lot tougher with these mortgage rates. And I think that's going to, in the commercial world, we call it capitalization rates. That's going to drive what yields that you need on properties up, and it's going to drive prices down over time. But it takes a while. Usually it's the banks that kind of come in and finally get people to be a little more realistic about prices. I'm also not seeing banks push a lot of loans out yet because the new capital levels, that they're not getting pressure from the regulators yet. Patience.
Yeah, this is an interesting time because it's kind of the stagnation period to your point. There's not a lot of inventory hitting the market. There's still people buying, but they're more selective on what they're buying. Interest rates do make it harder. Cash is more relevant, of course. Yeah. You see more of that. Also, we still have tax benefits available that are attractive for those type of investors that are look at the tax benefits. One thing I want to ask you just personally, Eric, because the majority of my investments at this point in time, as we've traded up and gone through many 1031s, is mainly commercial retail. This is an area that you it sounds like participate in a lot.
Yeah, a lot of it.
We don't do development. I mean, we mainly just buy stabilized assets, mainly for tax benefits. But I think we have around 11 different centers at this point, all throughout Colorado, northern Colorado, Colorado Springs down to Broomfield. But I guess my question to you, because we haven't seen, there's just not a lot coming on the market, right? And it's, what do you view in the retail space?
Well, it's held amazingly well. During COVID, man, our strategy was kind of these little service centers because they were kind of Amazon proof, I used to say, that the hair cutting, the nails, that kind of stuff. And then geez, COVID hit and I drove around and said, Jesus, these are empty. This doesn't feel too good.
Yeah.
Anyway, but they came back and they've been pretty strong. We actually, God, we hardly have a vacancy in what we have. I mean, it's been amazingly strong. The other really, really positive thing, if you own things already, is that construction costs are so much more expensive that a lot of new construction is
because rents are so much higher, right? Just coming out of the gate.
And every time that new construction price goes up, it pulls existing value up with it. I mean, new construction is up to 500 plus. So, those centers that we're in at 2 or 250 or whatever are getting pulled up all the time, and the rents are still increasing pretty well. I mean, so are operating expenses. So it's hard, and we got to watch, because it's going to be tough for tenants between rents going up and the
taxes, these metro districts you talked about. Yeah.
It's so, so I don't think it's, really, really solid. Like they're making a lot of money, but it's still pretty solid. And retail is, other than some of the malls and a few of the big box, retail is still holding pretty well.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing to your point is just a simple fact of like, what's the alternative to go find another space? Is really that it's not cheaper anywhere, right? So it's just figuring out your business and charging appropriately based on inflation and things like this. So
and we're still having in our area population inflow, and construction costs are going up, which yields value should keep increasing some, and real estate's still a good inflation hedge. I mean,
wait, could you say that again and maybe just tell us quickly why? I hit this point home all the time, but I love your perspective on specifically why.
It rises up with inflation for a lot of those reasons we were just saying. It's a pretty good inflation hedge. Rents and values go up with inflation. It's been historically.
Using debt that's devalued quicker over time.
Say that again.
Using debt, I think that's another thing in a high inflationary environment where it's like the idea of taking out debt to
now that's a lot harder to apply today, because debt, I mean, the last quote I got was over 8 on something, it's crazy. I thought, for what we're currently used to doing, but we opened a Kroger Center in 1997 and we locked in at 8% long-term rate, and then it all went through the floor. The rates went down through the floor, but that was the world we lived in then, and we all found a way to make money. It takes a while to adjust, but it will adjust. And the beauty about capitalism is we find a way to make money. Money finds a way. It has to adjust, and sometimes people don't want to accept it, and you're hanging on and hoping it comes back, but money finds a way. Find a good project and it'll work, I think.
Your first investment, you came in, bought the trailer, did not go well, to put it mildly. Why did you get a second investment after that?
Wow, that was young. I was always just, when I worked for others during the 80s and I learned a lot of lessons, I learned a lot about what not to do. I just had it in my genes. I just had it in my genes to go do stuff. I just knew how to tie up. As soon as I walked into real estate, I just knew how to tie up properties and how to finance them. And, I just love it. I love real estate. It fits me, but I'm not a high tech guy. I get into some other stuff. My wife's got to figure out how to get my computer on. I don't, but real estate, it just fits me. So, I've always liked it. I love the tangible nature of it. And I love economics, so I kind of see how things move longer term, I understand it. I always try to stay one step ahead of it. So I don't know the exact answer to your question. Other
Fair enough.
The main point is you stuck the course, right? You're obviously passionate about real estate. You're an entrepreneur at heart. That first one didn't go according to plan, but you didn't stop there, right? You kept going.
I got all kinds of lowlights along the ways, guys, a lot of different things, but I kept going and find ways to turn negatives into positives all the time. Yeah. We lost a major tenant in COVID. We lost a 24-hour fitness that had only been paying rent for 6 months. We just put them in. We ended up backfilling it with a Target, downtown Fort Collins. It was painful. Good education is expensive, but we survive and we move on. Don't be afraid to take your losses.
Just out of curiosity,
we get paralyzed. Huh?
100%. Just out of curiosity, do you bring investors in on those type of deals too?
Not usually. I'm more like sometimes I invest with others. Not that we wouldn't, but historically we've been doing it kind of on our own. That we find niche deals, and when you're a developer, you get the whole. Usually, the point of it is to get to ratchet up that value a little bit as you go in. So we haven't historically because we've developed and we've created value, and frankly, I haven't wanted to give it away.
I love that. I love that.
Do you have
take a little more risk and figure out how to hold on to it?
Do you have a mindfulness tip that you would give to somebody who is
Absolutely.
either getting started or kind of new into it? You talk about yoga, meditation. Is there one habit in particular you would recommend to someone?
I'm going to give you two.
That'll work.
Quick. First thing is the low-hanging fruit's gratitude. Figure out 3 things a day, that you're grateful for. Start your day with that. Just, can be small, can be big. It just gives you a mindset shift of then you start looking for more positive things than fear and, what you're upset about and whatnot. So that's low-hanging fruit. And the other is mindful. Just start short. People start with meditation. They go way too long. Start with a couple of minutes, 2 minutes. Do that for a while, because when you first start, your mind is really wild and it's counterproductive to go longer. I find people get up there and they just go, I can't do this. But if you start with a couple minutes and you be consistent, maybe not every day, but maybe, 5-6 times a week or something, do it as much as you can. Your mind calms down. You get more efficient, get more focused, and grow it gradually. But just start really small. Start with the intention of being more mindful. Take a mindful walk at lunch. Just leave your phone at the desk, that kind of stuff. But start small and be consistent. People start too big. There's a lot of time, just take a little bite of it.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Eric. Really appreciate it. Again, his new book is Profit with Presence, The 12 Pillars of Mindful Leadership. The website is livinginthegap.org. That's livinginthegap.org. Eric, is there anything else you want to leave our listeners with today?
I would just say we launched the book March 7th, and number 1 in 4 categories, I think, both in new releases and in different categories. Today it was in Knowledge Capital. So if you want to know more about us and our programs, and it's full of real estate stories. If you like real estate, hop in it, man. I'm a real estate guy, and that's the stories that I tell in it. So great.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much again. For everybody else, don't forget to head over to renttoretirement.com to check out what we do and the inventory we have there. Don't forget to leave us a review on whatever podcast platform you use. Take a screenshot of it, send it to podcasts@renttoretirement.com. We will get you a $10 gift card and enter you into a raffle for a $500 closing credit. Also, if you want that report Zach talks about, the top 20 markets to invest in 2023, email that podcast@renttoretirement.com. and we will get that sent right over to you. Really appreciate the time you took to educate yourselves today, and we'll talk to you on the next episode.